Welcome to Driven Ops Power Talk. I'm Jasmine Moore.
And I'm Rebecca Heisey. We're two work besties who have spent over a decade learning the ins and outs of sales and marketing.
On this podcast, we discuss all things go-to-market operations, the people, processes, and technologies that make up the engine of a thriving go-to-market function. Let's get to it. Welcome back to this episode of Power Talk. How's it going, Becca?
It's going great. How are you, Jazz?
I'm good. It's a nice dreary day. You know how I love rainy days.
Yeah, that's not really my speed, but...
So we have a fun topic today. Today, we are going to be talking about something that I feel like everyone's talking about it. We're going to be talking about AI. Some folks are thinking AI is going to replace them.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild? Can it replace us? Is it that powerful where it can actually take over some of our jobs? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think there's pros and cons. It's definitely a hot topic. I think a lot of people are kind of trying to dig into this and speculate. So we'd love some opinions later, but yeah.
Everyone's got an opinion.
Yeah.
But today we're going to dive in to how we're using AI in our day-to-day as operators, using AI in marketing operations, sales operations. What are some of those use cases?
Yeah.
So my first use case, and something that I use it for regularly, is in my reporting and data analytics.
Yep.
So as someone who has oftentimes been in charge of reporting after a quarterly reports, monthly reports, I've learned how to leverage AI in that reporting. We all know that there are multiple phases of reporting. Check out that episode. And in one of those phases, after I gather all of my reports, okay, I know what happened in this period. I know what happened in last period. Now, really, what's important is extracting the insights and understanding what that means and what actually happened.
Yeah.
So what I've actually done is I've extracted the raw data and I've given the data, not the personal data, but I've given data points to ChatGPT about channel performance, lead performance, month over month. And what I'll ask it to do is identify trends and give me, okay, did we get better or did we get worse and by how much? And of course, in my everyday dashboards, I can see the trend lines, but I can't see until I actually do the math. Okay, this month we've increased 10% month over month, which is 40% better than we did this year last month.
Yeah.
I could do that, and it's what we've all done for years, but it takes time, right?
Yes.
Using AI in that, it does it in seconds.
Yeah, it speeds it up for sure. And I think that's a really great point because when you're even just an individual contributor, you are really in the weeds of things. But a lot of times you're responsible for then going to senior leadership and being able to say the story, right? We did this, about reporting. And it is so nice when maybe you're not in front of those senior leaders on a regular basis and you do need to be able to break it down a little bit better, and ChatGPT or any kind of like AI tool that can kind of give you a little summary or a way to rephrase it that maybe isn't as technical as the way you might do it as an individual contributor. You can present it a little bit better to those senior leaders. And it's, I think, a really great use case around being able to use it for reporting.
Yeah. So not only are you identifying the trends, because I like to, identify the trends, where have we improved? And then I also, we have to take that human element to it and say, okay, I know that this is our strategy this month, and that could be why we've increased so much. Obviously, it's going to require that, but being able to take that amount of time out to identify the trends and really synthesize that data is very helpful. And then to your point, asking it, okay, what are your key takeaways? And it might prompt some ideas on what you should be focusing on.
Yeah, definitely. And that's huge, right? Because you don't want to continue down a bad path. And maybe even ChatGPT can then tell you, or any other AI, because now there's Genesis, there's all these other, new AI tools, but using that then to even say, okay, how can I improve this? What are your ideas to fix some of these problems that we're seeing? Maybe if you're consistently seeing an error, or if you're seeing some growth, maybe it's being able to then pull out those points and saying, these are the specific areas that have increased month over month or whatever. So those are the areas you need to maybe continue to do in your campaigns or whatever you're doing.
And it will always take you back to the data. A lot of times when you are talking to a peer Yes, there is no replacing the human aspect of human feedback, but ChatGPT may put you back on board to focus on the data. Actually, there's an outlier here. What happened here is bringing your attention to, you had a huge spike last week, just so you know, and then it's not going to know why, but you know why, and it's bringing your attention to that spike.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a good use case.
Yeah, for sure. I think another really good area for AI in general is just troubleshooting and being able to look at formulas, for instance. You know, a lot of times, this kind of comes back to maybe reporting, but you're also system admins, or you're looking at things and you need to use Google Sheets or Excel or Salesforce formulas. And how do you speed that up a little bit? Yeah. You know, we have so much on our plate day to day, and now you don't need to spend hours trying to make sure that your formula is right in any of these areas. And so being able to go to a tool that can help you get there a little bit quicker, I think is a benefit for sure.
I remember times where I was trying to either create a formula field in Salesforce or even report formula fields, like row level summary formulas. I do use those all the time. Years ago, I would spend hours scouring Salesforce, Trailblazer, community, looking for the specific formulas, because I wasn't at the point where I could just create the formula. Now we're at a point where you can tell ChatGPT, this is the row level summary formula that I want to create, to give me the formula, and it will. And there's some back and forth that may need to happen. It may not know it probably won't know your specific API fields, but you can plug and play. That's a huge time saver, and it just allows me to spend more time looking at the data rather than figuring out the formula.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even I remember, maybe we're starting to age ourselves a little bit, but even just going to YouTube and trying to find someone who already posted a video on YouTube about what you're trying to do. I mean, because when we started, we didn't have this kind of stuff. It was just Google and hopefully some community chat centers that you could go to, or, I think maybe Reddit too, but you were trying to constantly dig and search for someone else who had the same use case as you. If you couldn't figure out a formula, or even in Excel, they give you those prompts to be able to create the formula, but sometimes they don't work out. Sometimes you get those error signals and you're like, I don't really know what I'm doing wrong. So even if ChatGPT or an AI tool gives you the wrong formula, or it still doesn't work, you can go back and say, reiterate, like, to help me to fix this. I'm still not getting the right answer. And it will continuously give you a new sort of path that just helps you get there so much quicker. It's nice.
When you're creating a formula in Salesforce, and you'll check the syntax, and if you get an error, you can pop that error into ChatGPT, and it will tell you, you got this error because of X, Y, and Z.
Oh, that's nice.
Let me rewrite this formula. Try this. And this has saved me so much time, and I've just corrected my formulas and been able to work so much faster and spend time on the things that matter. Yeah,
definitely. I think another area too, depending on how technical people are and what their roles are, I'm sure people have found many other ways than we'll even cover in this episode, but if you are in marketing and you're doing actual coding, or you're doing HTML, or you're doing other things like that, where really, it's crazy how one small little thing can screw up your whole code, right? So being able to even use an AI tool to just read through it and say, like, where's the error there? Or how can I even improve this if I'm learning code, or I'm just in the beginnings of my career? And I think that actually helps you learn quicker, because you're starting to see where you can improve instead of just having massive errors right away.
You imagine having a full page of code that's giving you an error, and you trying to dissect it and figure out where the error is. But rather than doing all of that and spending literally hours doing it, pop it into an AI tool, and it could tell you in seconds, this is where your problem is. And maybe it doesn't have the answer, but at least it'll tell you where your problem is, and it will probably provide some suggestions on how to fix it.
Right. So I think those are definitely super helpful, features of it, and another thing that is really helpful is, if, again, depending on your role, because this is very general, you can be in marketing ops or sales ops or any kind of operations where you're using some kind of AI tool, but just even tech support.
Yes.
You know?
ChatGPT has been my tech support
Yeah.
on many occasions because,
Yeah.
again, going back to the community and the forums,
Yep.
I love Marketing Nation, and I used to spend a lot more time on it, especially when I was first learning Marketo and I was figuring out how to be creative and how to actually make the tool do what I wanted it to do.
Right.
And I would need to depend on the documentation, so reading the documentation,
Yeah.
as well as the community, which I still say depend on those. Those are huge and wonderful resources still. But if I have a quick technical question now, like how can I make Marketo do this? How can I make HubSpot do this? I will pop it into ChatGPT before I go to the forums.
And to your point, those community support groups are amazing because you still, again, you don't want to lose that human element. You still need those people to run through random scenarios that maybe you've never gone through, and ChatGPT or an AI tool might not even have those scenarios in place yet. So you always still need those human elements, and you have to be able to go back to those real use cases with real people. But exactly that, like if you're running through those stuck things that you are like, I don't have time to now read through all these forums. I have 5 minutes and my meeting is coming up and I have to be able to do this now. Yeah, you need to get a little bit quicker answer. It's a helpful place to go, especially with the multiple tech stack that we deal with on a daily basis, being able to, plug in any tool that you're struggling with and getting that support.
And let's talk about that. Like, where does it fall short? Because how great it is, it does fall short in a lot of ways.
For sure.
Just this past week, I was working in a tool and I was using it as my tech support, and I was trying to figure out how to perform a certain automation. And I couldn't figure out how to do it. It was a new idea that I had, and I was going back and forth with ChatGPT. And then I just started to stop and think about, okay, maybe if I use a different feature of this specific tool and try it this way. And that actually worked. And so I think the critical thinking aspect just isn't there because it's going to answer exactly what you ask it.
Yep.
But sometimes the answer is not in your question, and you need to think outside of the box. So that's what it doesn't do. It doesn't think outside of the box.
Yeah, it doesn't have that human element, like, that you sometimes really need. You need to be able to dig deep sometimes, and it's really just going to say, well, here's what I have so far in my database. And sometimes there's more knowledge out there in the human element versus in the computer element. So I think for sure it lacks that human touch, that human, experience, really. And another thing that I think it also sort of falls short on is emotion. So we use it a lot to generate emails for marketing, for sales emails. And although it's really great at it's very wonderful at giving you something right away and consolidating the information you're trying to email to people. But at the same time, we've seen in data that it's so much better when you have a personalized touch. So from a sales perspective, we know that emails that are sort of canned don't open well. We don't get responses. We don't have, maybe our bounce rates are higher, but when a human person actually goes in and puts that personal element into it, uses a little bit more of emotional tones and words that really resonate with people, that is when you start to see better results. So even though you can kind of spit out something a little bit quicker, it's definitely falls short on the emotional aspect of things.
Yeah, and that also goes into how you're prompting it. AI is wonderful for creating content. You can tell it to write an email about X, Y, and Z.
Yep.
If I were to give a prompt to ChatGPT and I were to say, hey, write an email about living in the suburbs and buying a house in the suburbs, it could probably give me a great email. But then if I prompt it and tell it about the audience, adding some of that human element and say, hey, write an email to someone who has lived in the city all of their life and has never even been to the suburbs and who has always lived in apartments, write an email about living in the suburbs. And then it's going to make it a little bit more personalized and consider the audience a little bit more.
Right. Yeah. I think that, but then there's still that story aspect to it. And even I've seen this when I've used it. It uses a lot of the same verbiage. It's so then you start to see, okay, I need to have that human element again to go in and refine this a little bit more, because I don't want to keep using the same words, and I want it to be maybe just, you know, more colorful. I want something that a human really is going to say, this made me feel this way. I want to give it that emotion. And a computer
it's a machine.
It's a machine. It
it's
can't
still a
do
machine
that.
At the end of the day.
That's the whole thing. It's still, you still have to have that human touch to it, I think, and so it's definitely not there. It's not replacing a human fully in that.
And I don't think it will.
No,
and it falls short there. And I think it will enable us to do our jobs quicker and better and at a higher quality in some aspects. In some aspects, but in some aspects, we can outperform ChatGPT.
Definitely.
We can think more critically, and we can add the human touch that is needed.
Right. And it's really interesting too, because I've started to listen to other podcasts that are kind of touching on these different AI elements to things. And it's just really interesting how, even though a lot of people are afraid that it's going to replace jobs now, I think it's actually going to create new jobs, because one, people have to be able to really know how to use these AI tools the right way, so they don't get those funny AI moments, right? Like where random pictures are tweaked and come out all crazy and not anything like you intended. But then they're starting to use them to develop more enhanced things for just personal benefits, like health apps and just different things that are, you know, people really need. And maybe there's not always the human element to it, but an app with a little bit more AI technology can enhance, and you're going to need more people in those types of fields who are knowledgeable in those areas. Right.
Maybe make a marketing operations app
that
does data analysis using AI.
There you go. There you go. So overall, I mean, what do you think?
I think it's not a chance.
No, I don't think so either.
Not a chance it's going to replace us. But I love using it every day at work.
I agree.
It helps. Keep using it in your reporting. I would love to hear some more ideas on how marketing operators are using AI.
For sure.
How we're using it in sales ops and across all go-to-market teams.
I have one other story, though, before we kick this off. So everyone is super afraid of, you know, new technology changes. But I did read an article that back in 1850, some New Yorkers went on strike because sewing machines came into place. Oh. So, I mean, I think we did okay with some sewing machines, and
we still have tailors.
We still have tailors. You still need them, and they use sewing machines, and it's okay. So I think we're okay.
I think we'll be all right.
I think we'll be all right.
Now it's time for coffee talk.
Coffee talk.
My favorite part.
Yes.
What are we going to talk about today?
All right. Today we are going to talk about oh shoot moments.
Oh shoot moments?
Oh shoot moments.
Oh, you know those moments when you're in ops, you're in the trenches, something happens and you're just like,
Definitely. And I wish we all had little cameras that could just get our facial expressions when that happens, because I think that would probably be a really funny, you know, sort of little skit.
Later.
After it's done and you've moved on. And
yeah, I'm talking years later, okay? Because sometimes something happens and you are traumatized for a while.
I agree. So it hits hard sometimes.
It hits hard. The age-old oh shoot moment in marketing operations. We all know what's going to...
We've all been there.
Sending an email.
It teaches you, though. Yeah, it teaches you.
You learn. Sending an email to your entire database when you only meant to send it to a small segment.
That one burns. Oh, that one burns a bit.
I think I still have nightmares about that. Yeah. I think I still wake up I haven't for a while, but I could see myself waking up in the middle of the night just making sure that audience is correct. I mean, in tools like Marketo, and you're selecting an audience of who you want an email to send, the Boolean logic could, you know, depending on how late you're doing it, one or should be an and. And
even with the most experienced people, sometimes you just make one
mistakes
wrong.
happen.
Yeah, mistakes happen.
We're human.
Yep.
And a
Exactly.
send that should have gone to 700 people could go to 70,000 people.
Yes.
That's the biggest oh shoot moment I think I've ever had. That tops it.
I agree. I think that one, I think almost everyone in marketing ops has almost had that experience. Yeah. And it's crazy to think that, right? Because we all could learn from each other. That we know that happens. But again, we're human and we make mistakes. And again, it's like you have a lot of work. You make one wrong little logic in there and it throws everything off, right? Or even maybe when you send to customers versus prospects or prospects versus customers, and you just don't remember to like add one field in to just change that logic. You're so worried about the rest of the criteria that you forget one little thing, and that just throws everything off.
I think that's the biggest oh shoot moment. We should have ended with that, but I think I have a couple more.
I think so. I think there's a few more we can call out.
And so how about when you create this new exciting automation? I'm going to automate deal stages. Yeah. And this is great.
Yep.
However,
I've been there.
When you activate the automation, you don't think about, okay, what field am I changing in this automation? And is that field in a different automation that triggers on its change? And so what you could be doing is you could be doing a great workflow in automating a deal change, but are you triggering 5 alerts? Many years ago, I had just hired a new Salesforce admin and we were doing some data cleanup. And I think this was like her second week of work, and we had a bunch of old Salesforce opportunities that we needed to, for some reason they weren't closed out. And so we needed to change them to something where she had to use data loader and change this information. However, there was an automated workflow that sent an email to leadership that, hey, whenever an opportunity is won, send me an email. And so her switching all of these opportunities triggered so many emails to the leadership team. And this poor girl, she was just listening to what I asked her to do, but I hadn't thought about the things that would be triggered from this change. So that was a huge in my career. But lessons learned. I never did that again. Right. I'll tell you that.
And that's the truth. Once it happens that bad, you're good to go. You know, going forward, I have to always check these things. I mean, I've had things like that happen too, though, where I've set up automation rules and it's reassigning tasks to people that aren't even the account owner, and then you're just in panic mode because you don't even. Your brain kind of stalls too, because even though if you're in a calm state, you probably could think logically and say, I need to go do this and change this or turn this off. But in that moment, you're so overwhelmed by the fact that you know something's broken that you kind of freeze and you're just like, how do I go and fix this right now?
Yeah, I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
I would not either. And another one that definitely comes to mind too, and I think this is one everyone also, I'm sure, has experience in, is having your token or a dynamic field without any data.
Classic.
Yeah. Classic. Or the data is bad and everything's in caps and you're sending it out and then the emails look so off, or there's just nothing there and you're saying, hi, blank.
Yeah. All right. So that wraps up our coffee talk in this episode on using AI and marketing operations.
Let us know what you think. Is AI going to replace us?
And also share some of the use cases that you're using that is helping your day-to-day in marketing operations.
See you next time.
Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on all social media platforms.
Keep up with us and all of our hot takes on all things go-to-market operations. See you next time.